Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another great session of Jobber Influencer. Today, I have with me Anthony Franco, who is with a company called MC Square. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us. And today's show is a little bit different than some of the past show that we had, where I had executives from the C-suite join us talking about the healthcare vertical. But today, I really want to get into the startup scene, really understand the culture of the startup, really understand the mindset of working in a startup. So I'm pleased to have Anthony Franco join us. Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your venture, and then we'll have a great conversation going from there.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Well, I hope I can provide some insight on startups. I started a couple of companies. The current one is a company called MC Squares, but I wouldn't say I'm in the startup scene as much as I've founded my own companies, kind of bootstrapped them on my own. So I'm not like really dialed into the venture capital startup scene, although I'm going to be going into that in a little bit. MC Squares. So before I can talk about MC Squares, I got to tell you a little bit about the company just before MC Squares because it leads into it. I founded a company called Effective UI, and Effective UI was the world's first, and I think it still is the world's largest user experience agency. We helped Fortune 500 companies build and design software that cared about the user experience. In that company, and I exited the company financially in 2012 to WPP, which is, if anybody's worked for an advertising agency, they've heard of WPP. They're the largest holding company of large agencies. But during my tenure at Effective UI, I ran a lot of workshops and discovered that the people with the very best ideas typically were the ones that didn't say anything. And they were the introverts. They were the folks that actually, they weren't the executives. They were the folks doing the work, whatever that work was, either in software development or marketing or in customer relationships. And I set out on a quest to figure out how could I get the introverts, how could I get them to speak up? So we tried Post-it notes and Lego boards, and we built iPad applications, interactive displays, and none of those really got people to engage in the room. Finally, out of desperation, I carved up a whiteboard and handed a whiteboard around the room. And for some reason, I have my theories around why, but for some reason, everybody felt comfortable contributing on their own personal whiteboard and then handing that whiteboard back to the facilitator. Well, from there, I decided, all right, once I sell Effective UI, I'm going to make a product out of this for a couple reasons. One, I think it's a great tool, and two, being a software person, I wanted to get into physical product design. I wanted to understand the differences between creating a digital product and a physical product. So a couple years ago, I learned SolidWorks, which is a CAD modeling tool, started CAD modeling the product, and we launched a successful Kickstarter campaign last year and just started shipping the product in May. So that's kind of the last, in essence, 10 years of my life. First through Effective UI through 2012, and then for the last couple working on a product called MC Squares. I'm actually taking notes on one right here. Here's one, and I've got a wall behind the monitor and everything. So that's the intro, I guess.
Perfect. That sounds great. I mean, I'm reflecting back on a leadership retreat I just had recently where I probably had the best ideas for my introverts as well. But how do you get those out of them? That's the challenge. So that's great to hear that that has been your vision, and now you're creating a platform for them to speak up. So
yeah, and it was surprising just to interject on that. One of the things that was surprising about it is I didn't even contemplate working in schools. But our biggest audience, our biggest customer right now are actually school districts wanting to get rid of the digital tablets and get rid of the interactive displays in their classroom and getting students who almost entirely are all introverts to contribute to a larger project within a classroom. So it's kind of a good thing from a startup is you think your customer is going to be one direction and it winds up being different. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's extremely interesting. So, especially for myself working in an academic medical center where I have the education vertical, this sounds like something that can be used tremendously for higher education. In addition to being a parent of 3 small kids, I'm pretty sure getting kids at a small that age, 6, 4, and 2, especially the 6-year-olds, to be able to speak up and be engaged. That's always been a challenge for a lot of the instructors as well in that space. So we talked about the culture. What is the biggest culture differences that you say in your experiences and adventures from a startup to what is the typical guy that you see in a big organization such as your clients?
Gosh, where do I begin? Actually, and speaking with a couple of leaders a couple of weeks ago on the differences between just innovation and execution within large organizations and small organizations, I think the biggest difference, and I'm not qualifying one better than the other, but the difference with a startup is you have the ability to be much leaner and pivot and move a lot faster, and there's an energy in a startup that is I can't even say is often lacking. It's always lacking in a larger company. And I think that energy is pulled out from the fact that a startup, you focus on, in essence, one thing or one product. And you live or die on the success of that product. Literally, my paycheck now is involved in whether or not this thing succeeds or fails. And that does not exist in a large enterprise. If a project doesn't work, you can move departments, you can move around. That said, in an enterprise, you do have legs. You have the security of knowing if one idea doesn't work, that you can potentially morph that idea into something else and work it into a larger organization. So the culture is one of security, and hopefully you have legs and longevity to be able to institute an idea in a larger enterprise. You have larger teams, which presents a positive thing where you have more people to interact with and collaborate with, but also you have to deal with politics. Where in a startup, you don't have to deal with politics. In a startup, you don't have to deal with a communication plan. So we sit in an office together, and I don't have to worry about, well, does Max know Max is sitting right here? I know. I don't have to write an email or create a memo or worry about how we're going to disseminate information to a large organization. In the small organization, it just naturally happens. We want to interview somebody and want to know if they're a culture fit. We all take that person out to lunch. The whole company. Where in a large organization, you just simply cannot do that. And with Effective UI, I've been able to. Effective UI I wouldn't call a large company. We're just shy of 150 people. When I left, we were just shy of 150 people. And so watching a company go from that small, tight-knit 15 to 20 people where we could interview everybody and they didn't have to go through communication plans, and then starting to mature to having more than just one leader, to having a couple, to having middle management. There's significant culture shifts that an organization has to be able to make in order to grow, and sometimes that you basically turn from a small company into a large company, which I think most small companies have the desire to, and you have to be okay with that culture shift, otherwise you're not going to grow. I probably way over answered your question, but
no, it makes perfect sense. I think those are the things I wrestle with. How do you number one issue in large enterprise communication? How do you communicate upwards, downwards, laterally, just so everyone's aware of this one minor concept? It could be a minor in my eyes, but to the rest of the organization, it may be something that has a bigger downhill effect. So I think you're spot on in terms of what you see. So which is, so those are some of the things that people gravitate to working in a smaller organization or a startup, is that the ability to not have that many layers of communication and just be able to get things done quickly. I think that's always a struggle. How are you going to move a big enterprise quickly and have that agility to move? I think that's a challenge. So I know your background has been in user interfaces and experiences. One thing is that I have seen in my career, primarily in the healthcare vertical, has been most of our applications in the healthcare vertical have not had that great experience or that design.
Yeah, let's put a fine point on it. Most large systems like that are awful. Yeah, from a user experience perspective, for sure.
Yep, and same goes. The one company that I have seen that has taken leaps and bounds is Infor, which they redesigned their look and feel of their product completely from the ground up, and that has been not everyone would be able to do that. Now, from your perspective, how do you tackle that? How do you tackle this user experience when you have a large system that's been developed for decades, maybe still programmed in mumps or COBOL, something of legacy application? How do you change something like that, or even think about going through that process?
Well, in large organizations, in large systems, you simply can't do it unless you have organizational alignment. So the number one rule is to make sure the entire organization is on board with the shift, because it's difficult and it is an investment, and not only just an investment of money, but an investment of changing the way you currently do things. So the number one thing is making sure that everybody's on board. If you don't have that, don't bother. And I hate to say that because I want software to be better, but if you can't get organizational alignment around it, you're never going to get it. It'll just be a money pit. So once you gain organizational alignment, and by the way, the way to gain organizational alignment, if you're the champion of that change within an organization, is not to say I think, but to use the word our customers. Our customers want this. Our customers are demanding this. And by the way, in our industry, somebody's going to do it, and they're going to murder us. So that's usually how you can gain that alignment, is through the voice of your customer and paranoia of your customer or your competition. Excuse me. But then once you get there, once you go there, you have to separate. In IT terms, you have to take an MVC approach to creating a better user experience. You have to look at the data separately than the user interface, and the APIs separately from the user interface. And you have to start with the UI. This is the ideal state of our customer experience, and let's build the infrastructure to support that as much as we possibly can. A lot of the time, that is a complete rewrite in order to get to ideal state. And if you're still working in COBOL, you're probably spending more money in maintenance than it would cost you to rewrite it. 80% of IT budgets, and this is a study done by IBM years ago, and it's still true today, 80% of budgets are spent in maintenance, not in product innovation. Imagine putting maintenance on a slow burn and actually putting that money towards product innovation. You'll be able to flip that number around and actually have a much better product and spend a lot less in maintenance.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great insight. I know we're running short on time. We probably had this discussion for hours, but great insight, Anthony. I agree with you 100% as far as getting that executive buy-in. Hopefully, some of these systems that we have in healthcare, I was reading about the banking industry, they have the same problem where their systems are running on these legacy code and legacy application, and it really has to be a organizational buy-in from the top down because like you said, it is a rewrite. So we'll be staying tuned as far as your venture with MC Square. But I really appreciate your insight as far as I learned a lot from just this 15 minutes today. So thank you so much, Anthony, and thanks to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.